you're speaking, that's certainly fine,
It's okay.
if you choose to.
Then I can breathe. Okay. There's no gavel, but I call to order. There we go, that's a good one. I call to order the July 6th, 2020 Planning and Zoning Commission. Roll call, please.
Becker, O'Flaherty,
Here.
Klein,
Here.
Vice Chair Doe,
Here.
Wright,
Here.
Chair Maxwell. We have a quorum.
Approval of the agenda. Any additions, deletions, or corrections? There being none, I'll take a motion.
So move. Second.
So moved by Wright, second by Klein. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Approval of the July 17th, 2020 minutes. Any additions, deletions, or corrections?
I move approval.
So moved by Klein,
Second.
second by O'Flaherty. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. This is the public participation portion of the meeting. Before we go there, I just wanted to mention that we are in a new location tonight. And I welcome everybody here. We are following CDC guidelines, and we do have the meeting location spread out to go with social distancing, as well as our committee members here. So this is the public participation portion. Anyone that would like to speak on anything not on the agenda, we welcome. Okay, and there being none, I open to new business. A public hearing. A petition by the DeKalb First Methodist Church for approval of a zoning map amendment upon annexation from the SFR1 Single Family Residential District to the PDR Planned Development Residential District. Approval of an amendment to Ordinance 94-74 and approval of a concept plan to allow for the construction of an approximately 7,730 acre square foot church and accessory uses on approximately 16 acres of property located along the west side of North Annie Glynn Road across from the DeKalb County Health Facility campus. So I open to petitioners. Okay, if you'd like to go to the podium to present, you may remove your mask when you're speaking if you wish, and if you could give your name and address, we'd appreciate it.
My name is Tom Weber, 6096 Pioneer Terrace, DeKalb, Illinois. Good evening, Vice Chair Doe and members of the DeKalb Planning and Zoning Committee. I'm Tom Weber, a member of the DeKalb First United Methodist Church and co-chair, along with Jim Horn, who you'll hear in a minute, of our land acquisition team. Other members of our team here tonight are Pastor Jonathan Crail, who you'll hear from later, Sally Mullis, Marcia Goodrich, and Herb Buer. For the past 15 to 20 years, our land acquisition team has been looking for land in the greater DeKalb area to build a new church. Several years ago, we met with Steve Story, who's here tonight too. Steve, give a wave. He, along with his sisters, owned this 15.87 acres we are discussing this evening. Negotiations have led us to the action we are asking you to consider tonight. After my introduction, you will hear from Jim Horn, who will give you the background on the what and the why of our requests. Then you will hear from our pastor, Jonathan Crail, on the how of our future plans. I wish to thank the DeKalb staff for their efforts in assisting us throughout this process. Dan Olson, principal planner, Bill Nicholas, city manager, and Zach Gill, city engineer, were most helpful to us lay people every step of the way. Thank you, gentlemen. Now I'll turn it over to Jim Horn.
If I take this off, I can see, otherwise my glasses steam up.
Thank you, Tom, and good evening. First United Methodist Church has been holding worship and serving the DeKalb community for over 150 years. Our current church building, located on the corner of 4th and Oak, was built in 1908. So you can see we don't build churches every year. It's the third church building that United Methodist Church has had in DeKalb. One was a little further down, nearer the tracks on 4th, and there was another one south of the highway in the 7th Street area many, many years ago. Much of our current building is not handicap accessible and is becoming increasingly more costly to maintain, mainly because of the age of the building. An aging boiler system has resulted in astronomical water bills. Settling and slanting floors, windows in need of replacement are just a few of the costly repairs a new church building would eliminate. It also lacks the necessary green space for youth and adult activities. As a congregation, we decided that a new church could better serve our congregation as well as the surrounding community. At a church member vote back in 2006, we decided that it would be time to seek out land and build a new church. It was also decided after that the funding for a new church would be raised up front to eliminate the need for a mortgage. As a result, a 3-year capital campaign was launched to raise the money for the church. All funds come from our church members. No financial assistance comes from the conference or any outside service. It's all members of the church that pay for the construction. We are currently in our 3rd year of the capital campaign. Coincidentally, Tom and I co-chair that as well. The amount raised will determine exactly what we can put into the church, how we can fix up the inside and that sort of thing. But from the very beginning, the planning for the church has allowed for future expansion in the distant future when needed to match the existing architectural plan for or appearance of the church, so it doesn't look like it's an add-on. Our current church was built in 1908. The education wing was added in the 50s, and you have different color brick, and it just, it looks like it wasn't built all at once. The new building would be energy efficient on the 15.87 acres of land that would meet our needs. The result of a less costly building to heat, cool, and maintain would allow for a greater portion of the church budget for outreach and community service. Currently, our utility bills are astronomical in that church, and that's money that could be much better spent to serve the surrounding neighbors and the children of some of our other programs. We have been working with the architectural firm of Saavedra and Gill in Rockford to design our church, and at this point, actually there is the plot. You can see the location of the church and Glen off to the right. Here's one view for the front. This would be looking southwest. This would be looking northwest. Like I said, we've been working with the architectural firm of Saavedra and Gill. This firm is an award-winning firm that focuses primarily on 3 types of structures: medical, educational, and religious. The church, being a single-story structure, would be entirely handicap accessible. The new church would also multi-purpose rooms that can be used for varied activities throughout the day and throughout the days of the week. For example, they could be classrooms, they could be meeting rooms, they could be offices. So everything is multi-purpose. It would also offer safe and convenient parking with the crossing of a state highway like we currently experience, and side streets like we currently experience is not necessary to gain access to the church. As part of the due diligence for the new church, we had used the services of Fair Graham out of Rochelle until they were hired by the city, and then they had to recuse themselves for working on the project. We then hired ARC Design out of Rockford, who is currently assisting with the civil engineering needs. We have met with representatives of the Kishwaukee Water Reclamation District to discuss and plan for a sanitary sewer. ARC also scheduled a meeting with them, which we sat in to work the details of that out as well. One of the primary purposes of our church is to serve the community. It has been our mission, and it will continue to be our mission in the future. Our church not only provides space for community groups to utilize at no charge, we sponsor several ongoing outreach programs to the community. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Pastor Jonathan, and he can give you a little explanation of some of our outreach programs that would come out of the church.
So good evening. I'm Pastor Jonathan Crail, the senior pastor next door at First UMC. And I thank you for the opportunity to give you a brief glimpse into our vision for the ongoing mission and ministry of DeKalb First through the construction of a new facility up on North Glynn. As Jim just shared, the Methodist congregation here has a very long history here in DeKalb, formed in 1855, which was actually a year before the city of DeKalb was officially incorporated. So we've been here before the city of DeKalb, long history, and of course had several locations, as Jim just described, and currently been in our building next door for 112 years. And so the time has come for us to move once again, which is not a decision that the congregation makes lightly. In fact, our current building has served our congregation incredibly well, and we leave it really reluctantly because it has so many spiritual and sentimental memories attached to it. I mean, so many people have been baptized and confirmed and married in that space, and so it's a sacred space and it's hard to move on. But as Jim just described for us, with the needed structural renovations, the maintenance costs, the high energy use, the accessibility issues, and a lack of green space, that led the members over a decade ago to envision a new place, a new facility that would provide a venue for inspirational worship and community engagement and service. And so we're excited to construct a new structure that will help us accomplish our mission. And our mission as a church, the way we describe it, is living Christ's presence through love and service. We want to express the love of Christ that we receive with each person we meet, with the wider community, and so on. And so we understand, of course, that ultimately the church is not a building, but the members that make up the body of Christ. So we, the people, and that's been vividly reinforced to us over this pandemic season when we haven't been able to gather together, that the church isn't the place we meet, but the people that are involved in making a difference and being together as the body of Christ. But that being said, the physical structures that we gather in for worship or for community service and so on are the physical structures are the tool that we use to accomplish our mission, right? It's what we use to worship, to serve the community, to be a blessing to those that we encounter, to accomplish our purpose and mission. So as Jim indicated, while we have architectural plans, we're still finalizing exactly what our new building will look like. And we want to make sure that it's flexible and adaptable to a rapidly changing culture and community around us, and that it will not only be a home for our congregation, but a community resource, a place that blesses the residents of DeKalb. And again, Jim indicated a few ways that we already do that in our current space, and we will continue to do in the new space. We partner, for example, with the Boy Scout Troop Number 4 and the Cub Scout Pack 104. In fact, just a side note, Troop Number 4 has been continuously chartered for 86 years by the First United Methodist Church of DeKalb, and so we're proud to host one of the oldest continuously running Boy Scout troops in the DeKalb area. And then we continue to provide space for CCT and the Penguin Project for their theater rehearsals. We have a regular monthly community dinner that is open to anybody in the community as a free meal. And we have an ongoing summer lunch program that currently is a summer lunch in the park down at Haste Gym. I think it's Tuesday through Fridays. We are giving lunches, maybe is it Tuesday through Fridays or Monday? Anyway, 4 days a week, giving lunches to children, and we'll continue to do those kinds of activities to bless the community in the coming years. As Jim indicated, the new building will be fully accessible for people with disabilities. It will be surrounded by plenty of green space for both prayer and what I call recreation. And of course, it will be energy efficient to minimize our impact on God's beautiful creation. And of course, we also understand that moving to the Glynn North area of DeKalb presents some unique challenges and opportunities for ministry. Knowing that the city of DeKalb and community leaders have been working for a while now on the Glynn North revitalization plan, we believe that by moving to this new location, we can join forces with New Hope Missionary Baptist Church, Westminster Presbyterian Church, and nearby communities of faith. But most importantly, we can join forces with the gifted residents and neighbors that are in that area so that we can be partners in creating opportunity and hope for an area that has seen some tough times in the last decade. So we're thrilled that God has called us to do a new thing, and we look forward to using our time, our talents, and our resources to bless DeKalb for the next century. I don't know if any of you have noticed around town at some of the places where frontline and essential workers have worked, but we put out some yard signs that say "Bless DeKalb" with messages of hope and inspiration and thanks for their service during this pandemic time. And that's really what we hope to do with this new space, to bless DeKalb now and into the future. So thank you for allowing us to share with you tonight. May God bless you as you make your decisions and help us by affirming our request in this proposal before you this evening. Thank you again for allowing me to share. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Did you have other people that were going to speak? Or
I think that's it.
Nope,
Thank you.
okay. So I open to the city for their comments.
Thank you, Chair. You have in your packets staff report, and the applicant went over very well the background of their needs for the church and location and their service to the community. So let's back up here. So the site is about 15.8 acres total. I have a new technical thing here. We can point, which is very nice. So you see this black line here. So the subject property here, south of the black line, is already in the city. It was annexed in 1994 as part of the Eden's Garden, so they can get contiguity to the current city limits at the time, which was the nursing home. So that's why that was annexed in. And the part north of the line is unincorporated DeKalb County, so that needs to be annexed in and rezoned from the single family, which is the zoning given any property annexed, and they're going to rezone the entire site under Planned Development Residential District, PDR. Also, they're requesting approval of the concept plan, which you see here, and so the site does stretch quite long, 15 plus acres. The church associated parking, of course, access, eastern part of the site. This up here is the proposed detention area. They do have some accessory building, storage, pavilion they're planning to provide to on the site. So the total square footage of the building is about 7,730 square feet. Sanctuary would be about 203 seats. Classrooms, coffee lounge area, administrative offices, multi-purpose rooms, a kitchen will be included also. Access, as you can see, is kind of two phases. The first phase will be an access drive off of Glen Road, right across from the county nursing home site. So they'll be lining up with that. If I can show that here. So the existing access into the county nursing home site and their facilities, so the access for the church will line up directly across from that. Now, Beautiful Gate Drive, which is in the Eden's Gardens, the right-of-way will be dedicated on this property, but the road will not be built at this time. That road will be extended in the future when there's further development, either on this side, if it's subdivided further, which the church is not planning, or if there's further development to the north annexed in and north of the site. So the right-of-way will be dedicated. There's a plat of dedication. It's part of the concept plan. It's in your packet, part of the request for the approval. Dedicate the right-of-way, but the road will not be built. They'll have the access into the site as shown on the concept plan. Into the parking. Then they do indicate on the plan a phase 2 of future parking area and a secondary road access to Glynn Road sometime in the future. There was a traffic study conducted in 2018 with for the proposed church and impacts study. Basically, or the summary of that was there was a northbound left turn lane that will be needed. I did take some images of the, to kind of show a little better. There's the elevations that were discussed by the church. There's a landscape plan as part of the series of the concept plan. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So this is looking north on North Glynn Road. Off to the right is the county nursing home access and their sign. So there'll be a northbound left turn lane added. They'll need to restripe this, but there's no warrants for a traffic signal. Southbound right turn lane, there's no warrants for that. They'll use the current one. But there's enough traffic where a northbound left turn lane into the site is warranted, and they'll have to complete that with the project. So once it's annexed and the concept plan approved, prior to them constructing anything on the site, they'll have to submit a final plan that will include engineering, more detailed engineering, stormwater calculations that will show, and we'll have to show that they're meeting the requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance. That's looking south on North Glynn Road. So there'll be an access going into the site here, roughly. And you see there's turn lane in the nursing home project, and then there'll be they'll be able to turn right into the site. Parking was looked at too. Every site has to require parking, and for churches in our UDO, it's based on the number of seats. 203 seats, that equates to 56 required parking spaces, and they're providing a total of 65 parking spaces on the site, including handicap spaces per the state accessibility code. Stormwater detention basin, as I mentioned on the site. Just northwest of the building. In a location here, and they of course have to do some more engineering for that to meet the UDO requirements, which will be required to do in the development agreement. As I mentioned, Beautificate Drive will be right-of-way dedicated, but the road will not be completed at this time except access into the site. With the request, and we worked with, as mentioned, the church for a couple years now, going through the site, what the requirements will be, kind of the process, different phases of the plan. We actually worked out a draft annexation agreement, a little unusual, like kind of ahead of time, so the church knew what expectations were in terms of development. And through the review, there was a few waivers to the UDO that would be required, and I'll just walk through those. One is the building height. Of course, they'll have a steeple. The church will be 86 feet high. The UDO does recognize steeples, allowing a little bit higher, percentage higher than the maximum building height for the underlying zoning district. So 86 feet to the very top. The UDO does allow a 20% increase over the max building height in the residential district, which is 54 feet. There's additional setbacks too, but they meet all those setback requirements because they built the church is large open area. They're not in proximity to the property lines that would violate the setback, and quite a distance from any homes. So we think the waiver is justified based on there's not any residents nearby it, and it's obviously an integral part of the architecture of the church. Landscaping, there was a landscape plan submitted. That's turned where to the up is there to the west there, but they're asking for a waiver in a few areas. One is a berming is required on roadways in addition to shade trees and shrubs. They're providing adequate, I think even have a few more shrubs and trees along North Glen frontage. They will not have a berm, however, and they're also, there's a berm height of 3 feet required. So we just didn't think a berm would be needed or serve much purpose in that particular location with that. I would note too, and I'll move over to the, there's a couple other churches in the area, North Illinois Korean Church, that's in front along Annie Glen. No berm there. They do have some shrubs along there also. The berm at the county nursing home facility is, they do have one. It's not across the whole frontage. It kind of meanders throughout there. So we are recommending approval of that. They do provide adequate landscaping on Beautiful Gate Drive, frontage 2. They also, on the interior of the property, I'll move back to the landscape plan. They do provide some landscaping around the perimeter of the parking. They do not meet the UDO minimum requirements. They're going to have future phase parking to the south, so it didn't make sense of putting landscaping there. There are some foundation plantings too. And they did indicate to me they're going to provide some eventual landscaping through memorial funds and volunteer help to add additional landscaping in the future. So, but we do recommend approval of landscape plan as presented. Street standards, since the drive is going to be in Beautiful Gate Drive, that particular driveway is going to be 36 feet wide. Will meet the requirements. It will be 2 left turn out and also right turn out, plus an entrance lane, so it is adequate width. There will be no curbs on that at this time. Once Beautiful Gate Drive is extended, it'll have to be reconstructed and put in with appropriate curb and gutter. But at this time, it's just like a commercial driveway, because that's what it's serving right now. Parking lot standards too, they're asking not to curb the perimeter of the parking lot, but they will have 4 islands in the, you can see in the parking there, that will be fully curbed with landscaping or grass in those too. So that is a waiver. I would note too that the Northern Illinois Korean Church and also the other church in the area, New Hope Missionary Baptist Church in Twombly, they don't have curbing around their parking area too. So the stormwater kind of just flows off and is retained in a detention area after that. So there's precedent set regarding parking lot curbing in that area. So for any rezoning, we have findings of fact. We look at the comprehensive plan. The calls for residential there. Our church is a special use in a residential district. We also look at the UDO. They're meeting all the requirements except the waivers, which I just discussed. We take a look at the surrounding area. It's going to be detrimental to the surrounding area. There's 2 other churches in the area. We have the institutional use across the street too, the county nursing home facility and all their accessory uses. So the rezoning won't harm any of the surrounding area. They're quite a distance from any residential areas. Eden's Garden, of course, is the closest. Nice architecture on the building. And there's adequate services will be provided to the site. Water will be extended from Annie Glen Road corridor. Sanitary sewer, I believe, to the west from Eden's Gardens will be extended. And there's adequate fire and police service to the area. Public input, we did receive prior to the agenda being posted last Thursday, we did receive a citizen response form from James and Kathy, I hope I pronounced this right, Mazurowski, M-A-C-I-O-R-O-W-S-K-I, 1377 Omega Circle Drive, indicating they do not support the proposal. There was no reasoning mentioned. Also an email from Bertrand Simpson at 2570 Soros Court. He's in Eden's Gardens 2. Responded by email, concern about the extension of Beautiful Gate Drive, and I responded back that it will not be extended with the development of the church. Also a letter and 2 letters came at the same time from Karen and Sam Baker of 1230 Omega Circle, and also from the management company for Eden's Gardens, a concern about stormwater drainage. So there is a stormwater detention pond on the church site, which will have to meet all the UDO requirements. I guess there's some concern about the current stormwater in the subdivision. So I did respond indicating that they'll providing their own stormwater, meeting the UDO requirements checked by our city engineer. Also, since the posting of the agenda, we did get another email from Matt and Jackie Swansky, 1229 Omega Circle Drive, so I'll add that to the record. You have a copy in front of you. Concern also about stormwater detention. I responded also that the church would provide that on site. They also had a note about the condition of Twombly Road to the south, of course, down here. And that will be it's in pretty poor condition now. That's a project the county's gonna undertake, and they're in their current design work on it. And that will be reconstructed and improved next year. There'll also be a sidewalk added on the north side of Twombly from North Annie Glen to the existing sidewalk on the north side of the Eden's Garden area. So that will be improved next year.
Good.
So those were the public comments received. In conclusion, the staff recommends approval of the annexation and rezoning and the concept plan approval and the waivers. The construction of the new facility will accommodate the church's immediate and future needs. It's a well-designed project, allows for flexibility by the applicant to develop the church in the manner that complements the surrounding area and meets the needs of the church. So we recommend approval. There's a sample motion recommending approval provided in the staff report. Approves the rezoning, annexation, the plans as discussed, and they're all noted on Exhibit A, and then there's development standards in Exhibit B, which describe what uses are allowed, what development standards they have to provide. The procedure for final plans, those will be reviewed by staff, ensuring that they meet the concept plan in terms of layout of the site and meeting all the UDO requirements. The 4 waivers I discussed are also mentioned there as being approved. So that's the report. Certainly happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Okay. First, we'll open up to public comments. We do have a speaker request form from Jim Neff.
That's me.
Okay. If you'd come to the podium and state your name and address.
Okay.
And you don't have to fill the form out unless you've got time. You're welcome to. Yeah. You'll be able to come up and speak. You're fine.
Yeah, my name is Jim Neff. I live at 1245 Omega Circle Drive. And when I received this, I just jotted down a few things about my concern. And I know Steve from various reasons, but his farm is right behind me. And we had a pond. We must have had a 3-acre pond this spring. We had it a couple years ago. We had it, and then this year was the worst one we ever had. I've lived there since 2013. But the answers that you give about having a water retention pretty much satisfied that question that I had. And also, I was big concerned that the beautiful gate was going to be included going out to Annie Glynn, which you squelched that, so that's one of my big concerns. Just, we're really lucky in our development that we don't have any through traffic. If you don't have a reason to come to see somebody there, you don't have a reason to be there. And that squelched that question. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. If anybody else has any comments or questions, you can come up. If you can state your name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Sam Baker. Me and my wife are the ones that sent in a request earlier. We live at 1230 Omega Circle Drive. The reason we're not opposed to the church at all, but what we want before anything is passed, more clarification on the water. Because as you said, there's a 3-acre pond every year behind their homes. We have a flooding issue across in their property, in the back of their property. It floods all down the back of the people who live on Omega Circle Drive. So if we need to know and be sure that they're going to build it properly. The ponds that you're looking at right now are 14 and 17 feet deep. Is that how deep they are now that you plan to build?
I don't think it's been designed yet how deep, but as I mentioned, they have to submit a final engineering plan and stormwater calculations that are checked by our engineer, and pretty much doesn't allow runoff from the property to increase from the site. That's true for any site that's developed. So there'll be no stormwater impact from the church development on the existing ponds in Eden's Garden, so.
Okay. Currently, it does run off.
Well, on
And currently,
farmland, it does run off,
flood
yeah.
behind the homes. So
And
when you
that-
say there's not any runoff,
Yeah.
there's runoff now.
That will continue, but the development, the church building and the parking lot are on the eastern part of the site, and the runoff from that will go into the pond and be detained there, so. But right, the western part of the site is still gonna be farmland, as you can see up here, and there'll still be runoff from that, and
You
the
know, right
farmland to
behind
the
the
north.
pond that's currently there will be their property, which creates runoff right now. So that needs to be addressed before it goes any further.
No, they're not required to address the stormwater runoff from the farm
But
property
we need to
right
address
now.
the water issue before, because it will get worse. It's not gonna get any better if you put a church or anything else there.
They-
You know, if you put anything there, the water issue will get worse.
It will not get worse.
It will get worse, because I live there, and I can tell you, our ponds almost flood out every year.
Yeah.
And as
They'll,
we built homes, the water issue got worse and worse. So if you're not gonna address it, what you're saying is you're okay with the subdivision getting flooded, because that will happen.
well, if there's a current situation here subdivision, then our city engineer can look at that, but, you know, that's not really related to the church at this time.
The question is, it's Eden's Gardens. I'm a farmer, I'm the landowner, and I had that re-tiled, but Eden's Garden has an 8-inch tile that goes into the detention pond, and I'm also the water commissioner for that area.
Mhm.
So, that's all I got. As my, you think I like to have my farmland flooded every year? I would love to have a larger inlet into Eden's Gardens detention pond.
But you would need Eden Gardens approval for that, correct?
Oh, yeah.
And you would not get that. Because they're flooding, right now, in the heavy rains this year, it was gonna flood the street and all the homes along the pond. They fill up to the top. There's 7, let me finish.
Yeah.
There's 14 and 17 feet deep right now. So if you're not gonna address the true water issues that we have, we're gonna have more water
You see
issues.
The growth around those ponds, have you looked at the outlet and the inlet? I think that's the restriction. Have you seen the growth around
Well,
those ponds?
I think that's the county's responsibility to fix that. And they're not doing it.
Well, if there's,
So we have a water issue. That's true. You can ask anyone to live there. You can go right now on his farm and look, stand right at Beautiful Gate Drive, look to your left for 4 or 5 acres and look to your right for about 2 acres. And it's bare because it will not grow because it floods every time it rains. So no one's opposed to you building a church, but build it properly that your pond takes care of these water issues. If you're just gonna build some dry pond or some 3 feet deep pond, you're doing nothing but creating more water issues. I will guarantee you that. I've been there 20 years now, and I've seen it get worse. So no one's opposed, but do the right thing and fix the water issues. And I don't think it needs to go any further until it's addressed.
well, we've heard about stormwater issues in Eden's Gardens. What I'm saying is, and with any site, is they're required to provide stormwater detention for their development, which includes the building, the parking, and they have to meet our UDO requirements, which requires that it doesn't increase the water runoff. But as you can see in the plan, the far western part's still gonna be farmland, so
So you're
Whatever
saying they're not
runoff from that-
responsible to take care of the flooding that's on
they're
the
not
land?
required to fix a drainage problem in Eden's
That's my
Gardens.
problem.
Yeah,
I lose money. on
That's
those
correct.
Flooded acres.
That's
every
correct.
year. Not every year, I mean, I've
But-
been around 100 years, it doesn't flood every year.
well, I can have the city engineer get in touch with you and to go over the issues at Eden's Gardens at this time, yeah.
Well, but the outline of the property says it goes all the way to the Garden Estate subdivision, which
It does.
encompasses the flood portion right now. So they should be responsible for fixing that flood portion right now as they develop the land.
The UDO requirements, as I just repeated, does require the stormwater drainage from the improvements, which the building, I can have our city engineer look at that more. I'm not an engineer, but I'll convey the concerns definitely to
But
them.
what I would convey to you is, no matter what the UD requirement requires, there will be flooding for tenants that live there now. So if you're gonna approve this and go forward, then you're saying you're okay with the flooding to continue and not get better. It will only get fixed if it's fixed when they build their property now. You're buying the land, take all responsibility, fix the water problem. But if we're not gonna fix the water problem, we're just gonna pass it down the line, and it will get worse. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. So, Dan, while, you can come up, sorry, I just have a quick question for Dan. So Dan, while we're in between speakers, can you clarify for me, for us? So the outline that we see here, the black dotted and line marks, that's the property line, correct? So the farmland that Mr. Baker was talking about, so the non-green.
The church and parking is way up here.
Okay. So can you go back to that picture that we had up? Please, thank you. So the green spaced area there, that's what they're building on, and then what's the area?
Well, that's just gonna be grass, open area. The church's building's right here.
Okay,
Here's the parking.
but that whole entire property area is their
But they're gonna own
property
this
now.
for open, they have open space. I don't know if they're gonna seed or sod where the green area is, but the western part's still gonna be just regular farmland. Is that the intent of the church, or?
But it'll be the church that'll own that area?
They'll own it, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
But
I
if
just-
there's something they can do with the, I'll share with the city engineer if there's something they can do with some type of drainage or grading, maybe to help it out or something, but
The flow
we can't
north of
solve
there,
it here.
That's where the water comes to make it.
yeah.
So what's that bluish grayish mark up in the upper left-hand corner? That looks like a little pond there.
This,
Yeah, what is that?
I think it's just maybe
Just the way that the,
a little depressional area. These are contours here, the red lines.
okay.
But I'll share that information and, bottom line, they have to meet the UDO requirements. There's no waiver, we're not granting a waiver to anything stormwater related, so.
I just wanted to make sure, because until Mr. Baker had mentioned that, I didn't realize it went all the way back
Yeah.
that far, so, okay.
You can see it here pretty good too. If anybody speaks, we need to have them come up to the mic.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And Stephen, if you-
My name is Bertrand Joseph Simpson Jr. I live at 2570 Sorrel Court. The south end of my property abuts Beautiful Gate Drive. Mr. Olson was kind enough to explain to me that Beautiful Gate will be dedicated, but not open. But then something else was said in the course of making that point. I want to be clear. I understand the Beautiful Gate's not going to any Glynn. Applause, applause. But with this church development, is there going to be any additional traffic on Beautiful Gate?
No, the road will not go through, so that all access will be to Annie Glen Road.
Okay. As far as I can tell from the plat, the church will be built way up in the right-hand corner of the property, and there's lots of green space behind where the development will be. And while I'm not as versed in water issues as Mr. Baker is, and again, I'm not at all against the church being built there. I mean, some of us were afraid it was going to be a food store like Jewel's or Myers or something like that. And a church would obviously be more in keeping with the quiet development of the neighborhood. But I just wish to put on the minds of the people who are going to build this church that in the long run, and my wife and I are retired and going to retire in place. So we've been there nearly 20 years, and we'll be there knocking on whatever wood is available another 20 or 30. As you develop your property, I would appreciate you keeping in mind how your alterations to the green space on your property will change the flow of the water. Water is always an issue over there. I'm not sure why. It could be that the retention ponds are not what they should be. It could be that the vegetation is getting in the way. I don't know. I'm just saying, I know that you're good Christian people, but simply remember, like, for instance, if you flatten it out and put a ball field out there, just for the sake of discussion, it's going to change the way the water's going to flow. And so it's always going to be an issue. It is also clear to me that this property was rezoned or will be rezoned from single family to meet their expectations. Is that a true statement?
Yeah, any property annexed to the city, no matter the proposed use, is automatically zoned the most restrictive residential district. That's just a law. So they're rezoning it from, once annexed, single family to planned development residential.
So this may be a speculative question, so then does that enhance the possibilities of the land further north to then be residential or commercial?
Well, the land north is unincorporated, and I believe we have for the most part, single family on the comp plan, but I don't see that likely with all the vacant platted lots already in the city. And I don't see it really for any commercial that much. I anticipate that will be there for some time.
When my wife and I bought this property, I was on the city council at the time when the economy went south in '08. And there would have been, if the economy hadn't gone south in '08, there'd be a bunch of houses to the west of Rosenau Way, and the whole traffic pattern would be different. So if this is rezoned, I'm just, again, looking to the next 30 years of my quiet and peacefulness. I welcome the church. I hope the planning commission and the city government will be as judicious and as due diligent as possible to make as sure as possible that water runoff doesn't become an issue for your neighbors. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak? Did you want to come up? If you can state your name and address, please.
Yeah, my name is Shea. I live at 1245 Omega Circle Drive. I'm just going to make a general statement about the water. Part of the big problem of flooding and whatever in this country, if you will, is every building, every highway, every parking lot takes that much land out of absorbing water. So everything that we do, we got to protect ourselves from that happening more. Now, I have nothing against the church at all, nothing. I just making that general statement. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? We will give you a second chance if some more comes up while we discuss. So now I open to the commission members for questions or comments, and I'll start with Ms. O'Flaherty.
Yeah, in general, I think it's a good use of the property. I would rather see a church there than other types of commercial development. But I didn't know about the issues with drainage and water. And so I do think that would be an essential thing to have at least some, I mean, it sounds like part of the UDO requires that to be developed and planned, but
Yeah, it's a requirement with every development, and
But
Eden's
if
Gardens has 3, 1, 2, 3 ponds. And the UDO is pretty restrictive in terms of stormwater, in terms of you can't have more, right, with new buildings and parking, water runs off more, can't soak in, so you gotta build retention ponds to retain that water and released at a rate that is not increased over what already runs off the property. In fact, many times it's less, so it does help sometimes in stormwater issues in the area, so.
okay.
But, so they have to meet the UDO requirements like any other development that's come into the city. There's no waiver for that.
So what would the normal course of action be for the gentleman who is describing the issues?
I think I can contact the city engineer. It sounds like there's an issue now.
Yeah,
Not, because you do have farm fields and there's no detention there. The water runs off the farm field and
yeah, and
The
at a
property,
certain
so.
point, I mean, there's a lot of farm around there,
there's nothing detaining the water there beyond the ground soaking some in, but.
right.
So
but-
I'll have our city engineer get in contact and look at the current situation. Maybe there's some resolution, or I'm not sure what's causing it, but.
Yeah, so that would be the one concern, because, so if the UDO requires that any new development make make adjustments to the development of that property and either create appropriate retention or some other kind of diversion. Yeah, I think I would just like to see the stuff around it, whether it's related to this specific property or not, have an opportunity at this time before anything new could, you don't swirl up anything that might affect tangentially down the road. But yeah, no, I don't see any issues with any of the any of the requests by the church other than the neighbors' concerns. That's all. Jerry?
Okay. Let me just go through mine in order here. The property to the north of the land that's to be annexed in, is that a county issue?
It won't be annexed in unless the owner or applicant requests, like the church has, so it'll just stay unincorporated until
So
somebody brings it, a request to bring it in.
a
Then we can
request
decide if we
to
want to annex it or not.
to the county. Do they have, they don't, that's not a part of the development here?
No, the area north of the site is unincorporated DeKalb County and will stay that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And there's no plan for the additional land behind the development, right? That they,
Not at this time. Church's open space, maybe they can respond better what future plans.
okay. The traffic patterns, you talked about a traffic survey, and they're gonna put we're talking about a northbound left turn lane.
Yes.
Will there be a southbound right turn requirement?
No, the traffic study indicated that was not warranted based on the impact of the traffic with the church. So if there's future development to the north of the site, that will be reevaluated, and more than likely there would probably have to be a right turn lane. But with this is the church, there wasn't warrant to do that. And the traffic studies is reviewed by our city engineer too. So the applicants do it, we review it to make sure we agree with it. So that's been reviewed by our city engineer, but no southbound right turn lane, just
Okay.
northbound left turn.
All right. From the beginning of this project to the completion, how long do you anticipate, or when you anticipate the project starting and being completed?
I indicated earlier in the third year of our capital campaign, and that will run through this year. I would say the earliest we would start building on it is 2022, possibly it might start some early 21, but I doubt it. Probably 2022, 2023, right in that area.
And be a 4-month project?
Yeah, so, 4 months, 3 to 4 months.
Okay. Now, the stormwater, is there, from the sound of it, there is a problem with water right now on the land? Is that water is not running off on the land? Is that safe to say? So the back parcel of the land has water that doesn't run off well.
Yeah, the back part of the site here runs off, sounds like to the west, and is affecting the Eden's Gardens. So that's just regular runoff from the farm field. But as you can see from the plan, the church site's way in the eastern third of the site. They're not developing back here.
Right.
So the detention, which is shown here, conceptual, it's a conceptual plan. They have to spend a final engineering before any construction starts, showing the stormwater will be adequate to detain the water off the building, off the parking lot. Probably have to be sized to accommodate the future parking too. They have
Right.
adequate area, and this is conceptual, this showing where that detention area will have to be.
Right.
So you still have on the west, you're gonna have,
Yeah.
I'm not sure
Yeah.
what can be done back here to, to require the church to do something. There'd be some grading or something, I'm not sure, but
That portion is that portion Eden's
that's
Garden?
part of the church. No, that's right on the
The
edge.
gray is too?
So Eden's Gardens is right off the edge here. But the church has all, what you see here is all what the church is purchasing.
So the part that is gray on that other slide is
There's the
other-
property.
Not that one. Yeah, the gray part is not the church.
No, they have this.
They
All
do
that you
have
see
that.
here is what they're purchasing.
Okay, why is that gray?
I think it's this area that they're gonna leave farm field.
It's not because it's dry,
Is that-
dried up, can't grow
Okay.
anything on it?
Well, I don't think it's quite a bit of acres. I don't think they wanna put grass in.
I can answer that a little
Yeah.
bit. The area to the west of the church, if you see where the gray area is for the pond, everything to the west of that, we have no intentions of doing anything on in the near future. It's
Okay.
planned for possible, in the future, we could put a wall diamond, we could put a prayer garden, we could have walking paths, put an exercise path, there's other things that can be done, none of which are planned at this time. For the next several years, it will be farmland.
Okay. All right, now, so the retention pond that's indicated on this, diagram here is suited for the property that's being built, right?
As required, yeah.
As required. Now, is there, I know in the UDO we have requirements, right? It sounds like we may need to assess the requirements. Does it need to be bigger because of where they are? Do we need a bigger drainage, deeper retention pond, or wider, or something like that? Because it sounds like Eden's Gardens, from what I'm hearing, is flooding out during rains, and I hear about the drainage and the size of it. But do we need to secure proper drainage of this property? Because gentleman said earlier, when you start putting foundations on property, there's less room for runoff. And so, does this need to be bigger from the beginning?
Well, that's hard to
I
determine.
know,
Yeah.
I know in the requirement, it's gonna say, this is what is required, but is it gonna hurt the backside of the property? Should that water be addressed?
Yeah, I don't know the runoff. I assume the water runs to the west if Eden's Garden's getting it, but yeah, this is a conceptual in size, so that may change once they get to final engineering. It may have to be larger, but it's intended to accommodate runoff from the building, the parking, so any water coming from this area now is gonna be detained. And, the water running in the western part, I'm not sure how they detain this water back here
Right.
and get it to there unless they build some huge stormwater. But the runoff is gonna be detained from this area of the property, the parking and the building, that's required. So this is conceptual plan, so I don't know how big. They have adequate room and they have to meet the UDO requirements. So there's not gonna be additional runoff from this development onto Eden's Gardens. There will not be additional with this. I think that's the key.
Okay.
There may still be some, because it's farmland on the western part. They're not proposing to do anything, and they're not, I think, really required to address that. Sounds like there's an issue with Eden's Gardens now, and we'll have our city engineer work with the residents to figure out what
Right.
that
I
is.
think there's an issue with Eden's Garden now, an issue with some of this property now, with water drainage, and so now we're putting in something new. We don't know if there's gonna be a problem with that one either.
Well, the UDO requires it can't add to the problem. Again, they have to provide detention to detain the runoff from their parking and their building and the area around there. So that's what this is for, and that's what is required, so.
As previously assessed and by the UDO, but I'm saying, do we know that that's sufficient? We know that it meets the requirement, and we know that the requirement at some point was developed because somebody assessed that this is how much drainage you need for this amount of square footage. But at this point, that sounds like a wetland, and does it need to be differently assessed? We don't want to put something in there new that either creates a problem. We say that it's not, but we don't know. And so it feels like we need some assessment of what's going on with that whole property area.
Can I interject a comment here? Steve, isn't this part of the normal drainage district?
Yes,
So they have assessments already, the drainage district does, correct?
exactly.
And
I
this
can
is part of
follow
that, so it would be
2 hours,
subject to
3
the
hours.
requirements of the drainage district, of which it's part.
Right.
What does that mean? What are you
Yeah.
saying?
Well, it's a separate unit, a governmental unit called a drainage district. And this one's been part of a drain, I used to represent him years ago, and, in fact, you were a commissioner, are you still a commissioner?
Yes,
Yeah, so that it would probably, the church needs to go before that board and find out what their requirements are as far as the drainage district's concerned.
Is that right? Is that?
But
So,
would they have to go in front of the drainage district if it's annexed into the city?
Yes, it's still
Still.
subject to the drainage district.
Okay.
well, all I know is the UDO has had these requirements. Every other development that's come into the city for 20, 30, 40 years has had to meet the stormwater requirements, and they're no different, so I don't know what assurances more beyond requiring as one of the conditions that they have to submit a final engineering plan, meet the UDO requirements, so I don't know what more to evaluate from this plan or not, but I'm
What
not sure
about
what additional
the-
condition you'd like to add, or what,
Yeah.
you know, what would you like to add on for review, or,
I would like there not to be a water problem
Yeah,
for
I don't think the city does
neighboring
either, yeah.
lands or the one that's coming, so.
yeah, and the UDO doesn't allow that, so.
So I have a question to kick off of what Jerry's saying though. So that detention pond, and I should know this, I know, but in the UDO, is the placement of the pond laid out in the UDO?
No, it just really has to be the low point of the ground, and the size of it, the depth, the width, is based on the amount of runoff that comes from the buildings and the parking, the pervious area. Very detailed calculations, every other site for Aurora, Facebook site, big stormwater issues. They're building ponds that meet the UDO requirements.
Because that seems so close for the size of that property.
Close to the buildings?
Yeah.
Well, I think.
Given the concerns that have been raised here, and kind of what Jerry was alluding to with it, does it possibly need to be a little bit bigger, or
It's a
does the
conceptual.
placement need to be moved a little bit?
I think they laid it out, their engineer is kind of a lower part of the site immediately, or in proximity. That's no different than any other site. In terms of the detention is fairly close to the buildings and parking. I mean, can't be too far away.
Right.
So, and they sized it
Seems close.
roughly, you know, a size that's gonna accommodate that. And they, once again, before they build anything, they're gonna have to submit plans and reviewed by our staff to make sure it meets the requirements in terms of the size of the pond, to make sure it's adequate. So, as with any other site that's coming to the city, so this is just conceptual, where they're not required now to show that they have, that's what they're asking for, approval of annexation and a concept plan.
So where would that, you know, they come to this body to, you know, get the approval, and where would it go that you continue the discussion about water runoff? Or,
The development standards, Exhibit B, one of the conditions requirements, the final plans have to be submitted prior to any construction on the site that meets the UDO requirements. And it has to be in, you know, basically match what's approved on the concept plan here, so. That's the requirement. It's in the development standards, Exhibit B, under final plans. Yeah. So this is no different than any of the other sites we reviewed or approved, or much bigger sites, yeah.
I think it's different in that you have some problematic areas that are nearby. I mean,
Yeah,
I
we
know
have
that
that,
the Facebook site
Forever, we had that too. We had stormwater runoff from the, you remember the hearings, we had some residents about stormwater. With the farmland that was running off onto the people that lived on 4th Street. They had some
Across the
stormwater,
street.
if you recall. Same issues there, so, but they built a big detention pond and retaining the water. Same thing here, they're gonna build a detention pond that accommodates what they're required to do.
But I think with that issue, we didn't have a subdivision right behind the property either. It was across the street from where we
You
were
had
talking
homes,
versus
yeah,
this
there were
is right
homes,
there.
yeah.
So, Ron, did you have anything?
Yeah, I do have some questions.
We've
Some
done jury.
have been answered already, but I'm curious about the present church. What happens to that when you move into the new one? Do you have any plans? Is there going to be sold, or is it just going to be left sitting? I remember when the church in Sycamore was built, the new church, the old one sat for several years, and finally, at a huge cost, it was demolished and hauled out of there. Do you know if there's going to be any use for this building?
If we could have, let's come up to the
Yeah.
speaker so we can hear and get you on tape.
Again, Jim Horn. The plan at this point is to sell the property, and then for whatever, use the purchaser takes it from there. But the
So
plan
you
is to
don't have
sell
any
it.
prospective purchasers
We've
yet?
had a couple inquiries, but at this point, we couldn't say the church was for sale because we hadn't purchased the land yet and had made plans to build a new church. We can't sell the old church until you have plans to move into a new church. But there have been inquiries, yes.
As I understand it, no other buildings are gonna be built on this property? You don't have any plans for any, like a school or anything of that sort?
No. The only other thing we talked about is in the future, perhaps a storage facility for lawn equipment, gardening, things like that. Maybe a storage facility for furniture or something like that, folding chairs, something like that behind, but that's down the road. Really, it's the church itself, no school, no parsonage, nothing like that, no.
Has the church's membership stayed fairly stable for the last 10 years?
Close, yeah, like a lot of churches in the country, it's declined a little bit. Obviously, the COVID-19 hasn't helped funding just normal operation, although I will say that the campaign has been running in, quite steadily for the past 2.5 years at this point of the 3 years.
Thank you. And I do think that the drainage issue needs to be dealt with the drainage district. I think they have some jurisdiction here, so you need to look into that.
Jerry, I want to go back to you. Were you done? Did you have some more? I did not mean to cut you off.
Yeah, how do you get something before the drainage district? What is?
Meet with the board. There's
I
a
mean,
board of commissioners.
Well,
Yeah, but, what makes a purchaser of property want to go meet with the drainage district?
Well, this is in the drainage district. It's subject to the rules of the drainage district, so they need to look into what those rules are and how it affects them.
I think within the city, and I sense there's obviously concern about stormwater, so if the commission's wants some more information, you certainly have the ability to continue the hearing to the next meetings, and I'll have a city engineer come and hopefully address some of these, concerns. But the drainage, they have to meet the city requirements. I'm not sure what has to be approved through the drainage district, if it's coming into the city or not, but if there's something they gotta do, then I'm not aware of.
So we can have a city engineer address some of
If you want
issues
that,
we
yeah,
have.
if that's the
I
desire of the commission, that's your prerogative, if you choose to that or not.
Yes. Yes, I think.
Or if you got any other questions or comments?
No, I was just feeling like, is this the, last potential opportunity to address those issues? And I don't want it to get past
Yeah.
this body if that's the last time we can address them.
Well, this is the last
officially.
time, the way it's written, the final plan would not come back to the commission. It would have to go through the review by the city engineer and meet all the requirements, but the final plan, the way it's written, would be reviewed by staff and per the UDO, and would not come back through the commission, the way it's written.
But you're talking if we continued it, right?
But if you continued, then we just continue the hearing, and then I can,
Right.
do more research and have our city engineer here or address
Right.
some of the concerns and
Okay,
probably maybe come to the next meeting and
yeah.
answer some of these more questions.
Drainage commissioner, we could meet with you.
Okay.
Well, I don't think the commission wouldn't be meeting with the drainage district.
Tell you the whole story, I've got
Yeah.
pictures from before Eaton's Garden was built.
Well, would it be
ponds all over.
appropriate to have that body here to explain anything
I
about?
don't think
No.
so.
We just-
I don't- Yeah.
Eaton's Garden was built on our district, so they did a pretty good job there with those ponds, but, the water that's accumulating there is in my farm field, and I would love to get it through the ponds and out to the 40-inch that's on the west side of your the development there.
Right.
But I got 8 inches of tile, and that's all I can use, that's the drainage law of the state of Illinois. So all that water has to go through 8 inches of tile. If we could find a way to,
That's a drainage minimum, or
Well, once
that's
the-
the law?
that's what's there now,
Can't,
so
can't,
you can't
can't-
increase that,
you
that's all,
you can't increase that, no.
right.
Right. So the engineer they've hired will do the final engineering and address all these stormwater issues, but if there's a concern, you have the option to continue the hearing once you have your full discussion.
Yeah, I would
And
like
then
to
I
hear
can-
from the city engineer. Maybe looking,
And perhaps
So
come
we
to the
get some
meeting and
better
address some of
answers
the
for
comments.
drainage.
Because I'm not an engineer and,
right, and I think that there,
if
you
we're more
know, I
familiar
think that
with-
there are some things we just need to look at for the sake of the citizens in Eden's
Sure.
Garden
Mhm.
and to give them some consolation that things are gonna be done in a manner that doesn't add to what they
Right.
already have. you know,
Exactly.
so.
So I do have a question, sorry. So, given the fact that you're not going to utilize some of the property immediately, where will the cutoff for the lawn be? It's hard to tell that in the landscaping plan.
I can only give you approximate, because a lot of it will be determined by what's required for this.
Sure,
But I would say you're probably coming right in this area here, maybe around in that area. We're only looking at using the front third approximately, maybe 40% of the land. And
so,
the back, the western portion would remain farmland.
so are you just gonna cut it off with grass, or are you going to put a little bit of landscaping back there to kinda, I mean, obviously you don't wanna invest too much landscaping, because then you just gotta tear it out when you're ready to go further back, but is there a plan to, how do you plan to
I
stop?
don't think
farm
at
it
this
out.
point,
Yeah.
the city has, when we've met, has required any type of landscaping on the western edge, am I correct?
no, you can sod or seed, whatever you like. There's
Yeah,
no,
and-
getting a waiver in the landscaping back there, but
So if there's still gonna be farming
there'll probably be an
back
edge of
there-
grass and going into the farm field, I
Well,
would imagine,
Here
yeah.
is where it's gonna end.
Okay,
I can't give you the exact line, because I don't know how the
Sure.
pond will be here.
sure,
But right in here is where it would end. We would sod up until that point. I mean, we could put something like a split rail fence, or you could put a line of bushes or something like that. That'll all be determined once we determine where it's gonna end and what the appearance. We want it to be very attractive. you
Right,
know. I mean,
right.
we try to be the best neighbor possible. Everything we do, our community service is based on working with our neighbors. So the last thing we wanna do is create a problem, for our neighbors.
Do you plan to farm out the rest of the land?
It will continue to be farmed, yes. As is the property to the north, the person who farms that would continue farming the back portion.
All right.
That way would remain untouched. We have no plans of changing things back there.
okay. I was just curious, like aesthetically, how it would look, because, you know, you've got this nice property,
Right.
how would you, yeah. My
Well-
dad has a farm right next to his house, and, you know, they took the fence row out eventually, and you can tell, you know, he just keeps the
Yeah.
grass nice and everything, but it
No,
would be
whatever
weird to,
It would be a lawn, it would be mowed, and it's very possible we could put, a row of bushes or something like that back there.
Okay.
That's yet to be determined with, with the
Sure.
final plans for it.
sure. That was more a curious question, because I thought it was kinda odd. It might look weird.
Madam Vice Chair,
Yep,
I think I'll take a shot at it.
yep, go right ahead.
Okay, as, Tom Weber again. As, Dan said, you know, what we're proposing, you know, is all pretty much legal as far as drainage for the building site and the parking lot. And then down here, you know, I guess legally, we don't have to do anything, but it really sounds like Eden's Garden has a problem. And it sounds, not to blame, but it sounds like an existing problem that I'm not sure, you know, what we can do. Are we supposed to build a big lake here or something? But Steve knows better than me, you know, as a drainage district person. You know, if you approve this tonight, you know, then this detention pond, you know, has to be approved by the city engineer. You know, we can't do anything without their approval, and we have engineers too that'll work on this. And we can talk to our engineers about what we can do there, but, you know, we're gonna continue to farm that probably for 2 years, maybe the whole property for 2 years. And then after we build, maybe continue farming that. And, you know, if there's a big lake down there now, Steve, I'm not sure how many acres you can get out of that. So I'm just kind of repeating what everybody said, but it sounds like, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, that you guys have had a problem whether we build here or not.
It's
And,
not a problem, it's the owner right there problem, the owner farmland. So when you get done, I'll go back and give you another estimate.
okay,
Ruins are unclear here.
okay. And that, maybe I muddied the waters, but,
It's just gonna be short.
Could you come to the podium, please?
Right now, the dry as it is, my sump is running all the time. It
Okay.
runs every 5 minutes.
Come back, come on up, Mr. Baker.
The water table is amazingly high out there.
As I said, we're not opposed.
I know.
We want you to build it. Everyone talks about the UDO and all of this and that. How about something called common sense? Now, if you were to go out there right now, on the back part of your property, he doesn't grow any crops. He loses money because it floods. Am I correct? If there was the water would have taken care of, he then would have probably have another 10 acres that he would grow and make money. How about we take care of the water problem now instead of pushing it on later? If you look at the map, the same map, this gray area, you're not gonna farm that land. That land floods right now. So,
Not every year, you know.
yeah, almost every year. You might get 1 year out of 5 that
Looked at
doesn't
for
flood.
65 years, and I know you looked at it for 20, but today, there's a big rain event this spring, and very big rain event,
And now you got a big open area of no crops.
right, but that's. it's
So
not-
common sense would say, why can't we fix this now? If you're not gonna use that land, let's do something to fix it. Therefore, you can grow crops back there. You can grow grass back there. You can't grow anything right now.
It has to drain through Eden's Gardens.
Well, that's something we need to discuss. But you probably could put your own retention pond back there to take care of that issue without going through Eden Gardens.
It has to go somewhere.
But let's have something called common sense. Take care of the issue now. Because if any of you drive back there right now, I guarantee you, I would love for you to drive back there, you would go, why is there 10 acres of nothing? Because it floods. He would love to grow crops there, but something has to be taken care of. My backyard's not getting flooded. The gentleman over there, his backyard's getting flooded. When it rains, it floods in his backyard, not mine. So if you never take care of it, it doesn't affect me at all. But I would like to see it taken care of. So just have a little common sense, go take a look at it, and fix it.
Bertrand Simpson again. I appreciate that the plan the church has put forward is legal. I have some familiarity with what legal means. And all of us as citizens of this great republic should probably understand that simply because a thing is within the legal confines doesn't mean it's necessarily the best we can do. Now, Mr. Baker talked about, made reference to some person's land who floods all the time and some who doesn't. My wife and I, our home is right on the lip of our retention pond. Our home does not flood. Some pump runs like the Dickens, but it doesn't flood. So there's some things about the way our development was constructed that some things are better than others. Now, before Eden's Gardens was built, I would imagine there was some flooding problems with this particular piece of farmland. And the vetting process, the zoning process that led to Eden's Gardens being built probably addressed certain drainage issues. And some of those drainage issues work remarkably well, and some don't. Now, all of that was done legally, and I'm not suggesting there was any bad faith, but the process was handled correctly, but it left a problem in place that we are now dealing with again. So part of what I think Mr. Baker is suggesting is, and I'm not sure how to do it, that we try not, oh, here's one, let's try not to kick this can down the road again. Because again, my bona fide is, my stuff doesn't flood, praise God for that, knocking whatever wood is available. But this problem got kicked down the road. I don't know how the zoning commission would handle it. I don't know how the commission you mentioned would handle it. I don't understand that part of the process. But miscalculations were made. I won't even call them mistakes. Miscalculations were made, and this stuff still floods. And it's possible that this development, while it may not exacerbate it, those people who backyard flood nearly every year or every other year, it shouldn't be happening to them because they went through the legal process and somehow this thing got missed for them. Let's not miss it again for them.
Thank you. Any further public that would like to speak or comment? Okay, I'm not gonna close the public hearing yet. But I will turn it back over to the commissioners for any further questions or comments. Ron?
Well, just on this drainage issue, when you cover certain land with houses, as one of the gentlemen said, the water can't soak through a house. It can't soak through concrete. It can't soak through roads, so it creates drainage problems. Probably the ideal use for this property is putting one church there on 16 acres, and there'll be fewer drainage problems because the water will be able to soak into the ground much easier than if you cover it with, if you built 30 or 40 houses in there, then you'd really have a drainage problem because the water couldn't get away. But with one building there, it's probably the best use of the property. It's not like the subdivision where you have a lot of houses and a lot of roofs and a lot of driveways that stop the water from getting away when it rains. Lately, you don't have a drainage problem because it's as dry as a bone right now.
Jerry?
Yeah, I think, I'd like to hear some from the city engineer, somebody else with some expertise on the drainage issue, particularly in that area, and give some consolation to the people in Eden's Garden, and whatever else we have to do to make sure this problem doesn't grow any further. Even if it's that we can't do anything, but I'd like to hear from somebody else, somebody experted in that area. So, and I do, I'm a pastor. I love the project. Might even have to buy your old building, but it's nothing with what you guys have done. I mean, it's a great project, but this has nothing to do with that part of it. So.
Yeah, I'm on the same pages, Jerry, where I like the project. I think it's a good use of the land, but it would make me feel better if we could hear from the city engineer just to discuss that and, yeah.
Get the info we need.
Yep.
I agree. I'm excited for this project. I actually am a member of Westminster, and we're very excited to have some new neighbors. But I agree. I hear the concerns, and I'd like to also get some information from our city engineer. I don't want to rush this. Let's do it right. Let's hear the numbers. Let's hear the facts from the experts and get the information. So, otherwise, I think it's a great project. I'm looking forward to hopefully getting this off the ground. And the last thing we want to see is, you know, you guys build this church and the drainage isn't what we thought it was, and you sink or something. You know, not that that would happen, but you never know. So, with that being said, if there's a motion to continue the public hearing.
I'll be glad
or
to make
wish
the
for-
motion.
Okay.
Based upon the submitted petition
No,
and,
Ron,
pardon?
are you gonna make the motion to continue, or are you
No,
gonna
I'm
make?
gonna
the-
make the motion to approve it,
Okay,
okay? Based upon the submitted petition and testimony presented, I move the Planning and Zoning Commission forward its findings of fact and recommend to the City Council approval of a zoning map amendment upon annexation from an SFR1 single-family residential district to the PDR Planned Development Residential, and approval of an amendment to Ordinance 94-74 to allow for the construction of an approximately 7730 square foot church and accessory uses for approximately 16 acres of property located along the west side of North Glynn Road, across from the DeKalb County Health Facility campus. Approval is also recommended for a concept plan, architectural elevation landscape plan, and plat of dedication described in Exhibit A, and approval of the plan development standards described in Exhibit B.
we have a motion made by Klein. Do we have a second? Or an amendment to the motion?
No second, that motion dies, if there's no second.
No second. Do we have another motion recommended?
Would like to continue the discussion, table this agenda item till we hear from the city engineer.
Date, place, and time. So next meeting will be July 20th at 6 PM in the DeKalb Public Library. Need a date, place, and time. In your motion.
Here, okay.
Yeah.
So I'd like to table this item to continue on July 20th at 6 PM in the library to hear from the city engineer.
Second.
So motion's been made by Wright to continue, a second by O'Flaherty. Roll call, or all in favor? Do we do a roll call, Dan, or?
Yes.
Okay, roll call.
Becker, O'Flaherty,
Yes.
Klein,
No,
Doe,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Chair Maxwell. Motion passes.
Could you
Thank
direct
you.
us to what you would like us to do, or is it mainly from the city engineer?
That's just
Yeah,
from
we'll
the
get
city.
the city engineer up to date, take a look at the current situation, and trying to have some additional information for the
You've done
packet,
all you
and
need
probably
to
come
do.
to the meeting.
Yeah.
Is there some
This-
more?
Okay. I want to thank everybody that has come to speak out tonight. You're welcome to come back on July 20th, is that what you said?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. The second item is a petition by Municipal Resolutions on behalf of First National Bank of Omaha for approval of a variance to Article 13.06.04 of the Unified Development Ordinance in order to incorporate a 40-square-foot electronic changeable copy sign on an existing legal non-conforming ground sign at the First National Bank of Omaha located at 121 West Lincoln Highway. And I open to the petitioners. I was like, I thought you were leaving with everybody. There's nobody here.
My name is,
Hang on just a second. This one right now.
my name is Karen Dodge, and I'm representing Aurora Sign Company on behalf of First National Bank. And we would like to install an electronic changeable copy sign at 121 West Lincoln. We will keep the footing, post, and cabinet that was installed in the 1980s. We are proposing to replace the face and add the electronic message center. We are proposing this request to establish communication with customers and the community, similar to the First Midwest Bank across the street with their curved wall sign. We would like to improve the existing sign's use and not make it any larger or taller. These changes should not have a negative impact on adjoining properties. The property to the west is the First National Bank branch office. The location of this variance request is for the administrative building. And we shall comply with the UDO 13.06.04 by maintaining only one electronic message center on the property, keeping the message center under 40 square feet, not having off-site advertising, maintaining a static 5-second hold without transitions, and installing a dimmer switch to ensure the brightness to not exceed 500 nits and a shut-off switch. I've been told that there was 2 residential concerns to the north of our property, which would be the other side of this building.
I did add just a location for them for the benefit of the commission. We did receive one prior to the packet and one that's handed out to you tonight. This is the bank administrative office. The sign, existing sign is here and circled in red. The 2 residents are 150 and 200 Locust Street, which I identified back here. These 2 lots, concerned about the visibility of the sign, particularly when the leaves fall. So just for a reference for the commissioner where those residents are at.
So we don't believe that the sign will have any, it's an existing sign, and, you know, I believe that the, let's switch it here back. That the building, the administrative building is between the sign and the 2 properties, and it's about 20 feet tall, about 2 stories, and then there's a lot of trees in that area. So, and the residents are at a lower grade than our property, so we don't believe there should be any impact with them. And the sign will be facing north and south, so they'll actually be seeing the side of the sign. So, and we'll be installing that dimmer switch, you know, to ensure the brightness, so. That's all I have.
Okay. So if you want to have a seat, we'll have the city do the report. And then.
Okay.
So I open to the city.
Thank you. In your packets, a staff report, as the applicant noted, the background of the sign. It's an existing sign for First National Bank. It's currently about 29 and a half feet high, just under 30 feet, about 102 square feet. It was constructed back in the 1980s. So you see this looking west on Lincoln Highway. Existing sign, they'd like to change the face, and about 40% of the sign, or 40 square feet, would be the digital display sign or electronic message center. They have a detail of the sign, exactly what it will look like. So this is a legal non-conforming sign right now. For single user, we allow signs to be 10 feet in height and 50 square feet. So when it was built in the 80s, it met the standards, but became non-conforming, and those signs can continue. And you can change the face on those. You can't make them larger or higher, but they can be maintained over time, and maintenance, regular maintenance, or change the face of them. We have a lot of signs that have had that done. As you recall, just a few months ago, we did amend the sign regulations, and for electronic message center signs, digital display signs, we changed the regulations, and they used to be prohibited, and you had to get a special use permit for those, and we approved about 4 of those in the last 4 years. Many of you remember those. We had 2 for a couple schools in town, 1 for the car dealer Bemis, and 1 for Hillcrest Covenant Church on North First Street. 3 of those signs were new signs. 1 was existing sign, but it met the regulations. So in the amendment a few months ago, we changed it where they weren't prohibited anymore, electronic message center signs. They've become a lot more popular now. A lot of places like them. Change it to a permitted sign where you can get just a building permit with them, sign permit, as long as you meet certain requirements in terms of the size, and could take up more than, I think, 50% of the sign area or 40 square feet, which is less. There's a minimum time period between message changes of 5 seconds. There's other requirements about no flashing, transitions, a limit on the intensity of the lighting, automatic shut off. There's conditions that we approved with all those other 4 special use permits that we actually took and put right in the UDO ordinance. So, but we changed it to, instead of special use permit, if you needed to vary a sign, and what you're doing here for height and size, because their sign doesn't comply with that, you can get a variance. That's why they applied for a variance. And a variance is a decision by the commission. It's not a recommendation. That you have the final say in the variance. As noted by the petitioner, they want to communicate their messages from the bank right across the street, First Midwest Bank, 2012, when it was a different name of bank. Got a special use permit for a digital display sign. It's on the building, actually. You can kind of see that there. Had restrictions with it. There was no time. It was vague on terms of, I look back at the ordinance from 2012, there's no specific time on when message could changes, but there was limits on how it could transition and couldn't flash. They've been pretty good over that through the years. We've had call them a few times where they, change things, and you can just change it with the flip of a switch or a few things. So they want to keep up with them. I noted the 4 signs that we approved before, special use permits with digital display signs on them. The bank does have another sign. This sign is for their administrative offices just directly west. They have their actual drive-up bank, which has a sign too, just to the west, and they have their own sign that's 50 square feet and about 10 feet in height, meeting the requirements. And they got a permit a few years ago. It used to be Castle Bank, and then they changed. So also looking in the area, there are some non-conforming signs further west, American Liquors, Shell gas station. I'm not sure the exact type, but they exceed the 10 feet. Los 3 burritos also. So they're proposing a sign. This is the same sign company. If you recall, the latest we had was Clinton Rosette Middle School and a digital display sign. So have the same technology in terms of the lighting as that one. The banks tend to be more conservative, so their lighting will be, and there's a lot of restrictions in the UDO on it, so which we'll comply with. They're not going to change, proposing to change any of that. This is the fact that they are going to be up on a larger sign. It's going to be 40 square feet, which is kind of the max for digital display signs. So it's only taking 40% of the sign. It's not the whole sign. It's only about 40% of it will be the digital display part. So looking at the variances, a little different findings than a special use or rezoning. Number one, is it reasonable return on the property? Yeah, they've had the sign for a long time, but they're trying to be in the same situation as what the bank is across the street is allowed to do. They want to match that. They also want to convey their message, and the sign's in good shape. They maintained it well over the years. We also look at the effects on adjacent properties. Is this an inconvenience to the area, or is it something unique about the property? I don't know if there's something unique. It's just a non-conforming sign. Trying to get visibility on there. They're not taking up the whole sign, just 40%. We need to take a look at the surrounding area. There's other signs, digital display sign right across the street. That's about 36 square feet, is about the size of that one, so very comparable in size to the bank, First Midwest Bank on the south side of Lincoln Highway. And then we've approved these other special use permits since 2016, 4 of those. To the west, we have the larger signs, non-conforming, of course, but, so it's not out of character, the current sign with other signs along West Lincoln Highway. It's unusual that we're looking at a digital display sign on a non-conforming sign. That is something different that we not approved before, or even had a petition for. So that is a little bit different. A couple regarding public responses or input, we did get, prior to the agenda being posted, it was in your packet, brought up by the applicant too, from Valerie Flynn of 200 West Locust, objecting to the variance. That will come up here. Been moving around too quick probably. Just directly north of the site, they're concerned about, and particularly what they're going to see in that sign, particularly when the leaves fall. I'm not sure what they can exactly see now. It's not clear in the 2 emails, the one I did hand out to you also. The property does drop down, the homes does drop down, and you have the bank building in front of it. Not sure why. Lost that, but you have the images in your packet. So we did also, after the agenda was posted, did receive today an email from Joe and Jean Gastiger, Gastiger, at 150 West Locust, indicating a concern about the sign being visible, shining into their home. They're not quite sure what we'll see once the leaves are down, and also commenting about the streetscape along West Lincoln Highway, that this will harm that in terms of the other buildings, what we've done downtown. So kind of concerned for the corridor too, not just what they may see. Again, I'm not sure what quite is visible. I don't have an image from that. This shows, it's in your packet, shows the view of the administrative building, which is probably just a little bit shorter than the sign itself. You have a line of trees behind there, then the homes behind there, so.
So is the Gastiger house, it's Gastiger, just so you know, is that the first house in that?
Yeah.
2 houses here, okay.
I'm sorry, I lost the image on the screen.
That's okay.
Directly north, so they'd be looking at the end of the sign, the edge of it, not the face of it.
Yeah, if you turn down Locust, going west, there's the kind of empty lot right there, and then Gastiger's house is the first one.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry to interrupt you.
So I lost that signal on the monitor, but those are comments made, so, but the staff's recommendation is to approve the variance on the sign per the Exhibit A that was provided. The current sign hasn't really harmed anything with the standards we have for electronic message centers in terms of when they can change a message, a minimum 5 seconds. All the other restrictions, they can't transition, they can't flash, it's got to be static, minimum 5 seconds, and change the message, wait 5 seconds, change. So we have the restrictions on those that we approved for those other special use permits that would apply for this also. So.
Okay. All right, so I open to public comments, but I will make note that there is no public here. So we will go straight to the commissioners. So I'll start with Mr. Klein. Any questions?
Yeah, what do you gain? You've got 2 big signs now in front of the bank. you're gonna get more business? What is the point of having this flashing sign on front of the bank? What do you want to gain with it?
The sign won't be flashing, it'll be, a
Well,
static
the lighted
message.
sign.
But similar to gas stations, how they advertise their pricing, we wanna do something similar. Our, home equity rates, our CD rates that regularly change, so they at least have an opportunity to see what we can offer.
So you think you'll gain some business with this?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not a big sign person, as everybody on this group knows. I think all these electronic signs look kind of tacky, in my opinion.
We try and keep it, as low. These electronic message centers can, like Great
know.
America or something, you can have flashing and fireworks, and
understand, right.
so it has great capabilities. But being a bank, they just wanted, be a basic, like here.
The bank's done very well all these years without that.
Something like that. Nothing
Mhm.
flashing and fireworks. Just this is our rates, and come in and get a CD.
Right.
So, yeah, nothing crazy.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So the sign will be facing the same way, east and west, the faces, not north and south.
Correct.
I think you mentioned.
Correct.
yes.
It faces east and west.
Face
The faces.
east and
Correct.
west.
Sorry about that.
So that would put it out of the purview of the residents that we're talking about, right?
Right.
Okay. The sign is on, what, all day? Is it, and you talked about a dimmer switch. What is it get dimmer at night, or what does that mean?
It can be adjustable. If the 500 nits is, I guess, measured from the property line typically, so then, we can dim it to make sure we don't exceed that.
All right. And it's, we talked about, I guess, the face of it being, is it 40 square feet?
The
Is
total
it-
sign's 102 square feet, but the digital display part will be 40 square feet, about
Is that-
40%
Is
of
that
it.
bigger than what we have now with that sign? Is that?
Yeah, the total sign's 102 square feet, so the digital
Right.
display
Right.
part will be
Same.
just 40% of it.
Same square footage. as
Same
the
square
current
footage.
Okay.
Yeah, the sign's not increasing in size.
All right. And so, and the messages would be just fade in, fade out, not this,
Right.
not the bargain basement rates. Okay. And I do think that, I like the sign at First Midwest. I think even just strolling through time and temperature, sometimes they do the NASDAQ rates and stuff like that. And I think you're facing a younger demographic who is used to information, as much information as they can get. So that's positive for me.
I didn't have any questions.
No?
No.
So I have a question, and I guess I'm not very visual once in a while, I guess. Is there a sign there currently?
Yes,
Yes.
See, I don't even recognize it.
yeah.
So it would replace
Yeah.
the facing basically that's on there right now.
There's an image in the packet shows existing sign.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that
I
sign
wasn't sure if
face,
that was kind of a
Just says First
Yeah.
It
National
just
Bank.
says- okay.
yeah,
I
that
don't
sign
even
face will stay the
recognize it.
same. They're just taking it out and putting the regular sign in there, and then 40% of that will be the digital display part.
So why did you decide to stick with that same height and sign rather than going with a shorter one?
Visibility and cost.
Okay. Okay. That's all the questions I had. So I closed the public hearing because there's no public here. Any further questions or comments? And if not, I'd be happy to take a motion.
All right, I'll make a motion. Based on the submitted petition, testimony presented, and the findings of fact, I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission approve a variance to Article 13.06.04 of the Unified Development Ordinance in order to allow a 40-foot electronic changeable copy sign, electronic message center, on an existing legal non-conforming ground sign at the First National Bank of Omaha located at 121 West Lincoln Highway as shown on the sign detail dated 6/4/20 and labeled as Exhibit A.
So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Becker, O'Flaherty,
Yes.
Klein,
Yes.
Doe,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Chair Maxwell. Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Reports.
Yes, so next commission meeting, July 20th, we have, in addition to the continuation for the church, the variance request for a fence, 904 South 4th Street. Recent action by the council, or last meeting, June 22nd, approved the Little John Elementary School modular classroom special use permit. And also the second reading on the 421 Grove Street for the Swedenberg Construction rezoning for their facility there. They also had a TIF, some TIF money approved that night also under separate ordinance. And of course, big news, the Facebook data center
Yeah.
announced, so thank you, Commission, for
Nice
your
announcement.
Did not know
thorough
that was
review of
Facebook.
that project and
right?
unanimous recommendation. So that's very good news for the city.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Some great projects being built and coming forward. It's an exciting
Yes, thank you for
time.
your time and effort in that.
Yeah, very cool. All right. If nothing else, I'll be happy to take a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Moved by O'Flaherty,
Second.
second by Wright. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.
Thank
There's
you.
McCavel.